As a finance professional in a disrupted business landscape, what does it take to be in demand? What does it take to attract great paying international roles? If you're an ICAN member, it'll just take one exam. That's all it takes to complete the globally recognized SEMA professional qualification and the internationally respected CGMA designation. As a SEMA member and a CGMA designation holder, employers will look at you as a finance professional, constantly acquiring new skills to add value to the business. That's why they'll be willing to pay premium to hire and retain you. If you have 5 years of relevant experience and are an ICAN member, you can directly sit for the final exam of the SEMA Professional Qualification, the Strategic Case Study exam. Start studying the SEMA Professional Qualification. Prepare to make an impact.
Good evening once again, our professional colleagues, students, friends of chartered accountants, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you once again to another edition of ICAN on Air, powered by our Noble Institute, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, the institute that prides itself with integrity and accuracy. And I want to believe that all our previous edition has been very educative, very insightful, where you and I have actually increased our knowledge base as professionals, having contemporary things to discuss about. Today, the Tuesday, 26th day of the month of July, I have come with another topic, which I believe is what we all know is trending. I know in a previous episode when the whole thing was just coming up, we discussed it on this platform. And again, we are here to measure some of the value. And I will be coming with the topic, measuring the benefit of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. You and I know that this act was signed 2021, and it has actually opened a lot of things. I won't have delved much depth into that, but that is why we have brought our guest for today to talk to us about measuring the benefit of Petroleum Industry Act 2021. That's what we refer to as PIA 2021. And I will be guesting today no other person than Alhaji Azeez Alatoye. Alhaji Azeez Alatoye, FCA, is a member of the Institute, the managing partner of Ascension Consulting Services that provides the business development, operational excellence, and practice management of the firm. He's a fellow of several institutes, fellow of ICAN, fellow of CITN, barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, a member of the Nigeria Bar Association, fellow of Nigeria Institute of Management, fellow of Institute of Strategic Management, associate member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrator, and he holds a national higher national diploma from the Kwara State Polytechnic. He has his work experience starting with ZO or Sosonya to PricewaterhouseCoopers, Akintola, Williams Deloitte, Ernst & Young, Safran Professional Services before he commenced Ascension Consulting Services in August 1st, 2022. He has his depth knowledge in petroleum industry tax, matter, international tax, and business tax compliance. He's a member of the tax faculty of our great institute and a member of the technical committee of the National Assembly on the Petroleum Industry Bill 2018, a key member of the physical team. That is Alhaji Azeez Alatoye, FCA, who in no distance time I will be welcoming even to join me so that I can do justice and enlighten us on some of the benefits that PIA 2021 has actually brought to bear. I want to assure you that today program is well packaged, well loaded. I'll be going on a very short break, and when I'll be coming in, I'll come in with a guest. Stay tuned, get your writing materials ready because it's another time to learn again on ICAN on Air, powered by our institute. I'll be right back. Welcome back, and it's my pleasure once again to welcome you to ICAN on Air for today, Tuesday, 26th July. And I have with me in the studio our guest for today, Alhaji Aziz Alatoye, FCA. Alhaji, you're welcome, sir.
Yes, thanks very much, Sesson.
Yeah, we are going straight to the business of today, and that is measuring the benefit of Petroleum Industrial Act 2021. Alhaji, can you please give us an overview of PIE in a very concise manner?
Okay, thanks, Sesson, and good evening, all our listeners. The Petroleum Industry Act 2021, to be very concise, actually, started its journey from year 2000, from discussions, from setting up of reform group in 2005, and in 2008, there was commencement of the draft of the first petroleum industry bill. And in 2009, actually, there was a draft, which is referred to as a PIB 2009, but invariably it couldn't get passed. And there was another one in 2012. It also couldn't get passed. Another one in 2018. In fact, the 2018 one was split into four, parts. So the governance was passed by the two, House of the National Assembly, but it wasn't assented to by the president. So invariably, the 2018 wasn't also passed. So for the first time in that 20 years was the 2021, petroleum industry bill that was passed into act in 2021 and signed specifically on 16th of August 2021 by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General Muhammadu Buhari. So this PIA actually have 5 parts to it, or 5 chapters. Let me put it that way. And the first one is the governance and the institution, of the industry. That is the governance aspect as well as the institution. The second one is the administration of the oil, blocks. And the third one is the host community, which is recognized to be a very key, a part and a success factor of the industry. And the fourth one is fiscal. The fiscal framework for the payment of the taxes, the royalties, and then, the dues to the government. And finally, we have the miscellaneous, provisions, which deals with the legal provisions and then the transitional arrangement. So in summary, these are the 5 parts for which we have the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. Yes.
Wonderful and very brilliant, very concise, telling us the major aspect of it. Break down into 5: governance and institution, administrative, host community, which is very, very key, fiscal framework, and the miscellaneous. While we are proceeding, Mr. Latoye, the legislative, while showcasing the PIA 2021, alluded to a number of benefits brought forth to its enhancement. Can you mention some of these benefits to our viewers at home?
Okay, thanks, Shasir. The first key thing is the certainty, in the oil industry in Nigeria. That is the first, very key benefit of passing the, PIA, because we've been living with uncertainty for quite long. And so the investor wouldn't know what the law is going to be in the next year. So nobody really wants to invest in in an uncertain environment, and that's the major, challenge then. So the first benefit, and I will say, both to the investor as well as to the government as well, is the certainty that the PIA, bring onto the table. The other benefits include, planned increased revenue to the government. But we'll be looking at that in much more details as to whether that is achieved or not. But based on the plan, increased revenue to the government, either by volume, or by higher government stake, which will not probably, put the investors at a disadvantage, is another benefit. The benefit of PIA also is the focus on the reward system, rather than on the efforts. For instance, if you look at the petroleum production allowance now, being introduced, in which the allowance that is going to be granted is going to be based on the production that has been done, as against on investment that was done in the past. You may invest and your level of production may still be low. So we will calculate your investment allowance and then claim it against your profit, and probably there is nothing on the table. But now it is more focused on the production that you are able to do, which means the government is moving away from efforts to results. So these are the key benefits, of the PIA that everybody salute, that, okay, this is a fine, thing. But the workability of it, as we are going on now, is a different issue because of the challenges, in the industry. Another thing is, progressive revenue during the high price. So these are some of the benefits there.
Very brilliant, Alaji, highlighting some of the benefit to us. At least the key factor there is when you talk about certainty on the part of the investor and that of the government, the planned improved revenue, so that government can know whatever will definitely come in, rewarding, everything that you're doing as against effort, and the progressive aspect of it. That is quite very insightful, and we can see that the value are there. Although you said the practicability of it, we'll discuss. Let me proceed on this by saying, when you are highlighting the 5 chapters, which I can call the cardinals of PIA, there is a significance of host community. Even while you are breaking the 5, you tend to lay so much emphasis on that, which was we enable the development largely under their control and input. How effective is the governance control provided in the PIA vis-a-vis the practicality of operation by the oil companies in the oil producing communities?
Okay, there are two aspects, of that. The first thing is the objective of, the plan for the host community, and that is to bring, prosperity to the host community as against poverty in the host community. It is also planned for direct social and economic benefits, to the community, and also enhance the what I would call peaceful and harmonious relationship between the host community and the operators. These are the key objectives, and for which the government now, through the PIA, set up the host community trust fund. And this trust fund is going to have a board, board of trustees. And it's also going to have a management committee that is going to be different from the board of trustees. And it's going to have fund managers that is going to be managing the fund, as well as the matrix of sharing the revenue, 75% capex, 20%, reserve, and then the cost must not be more than 5%. And there is need for the, need assessment of the community, as well as the host community development plans. So this governance was actually planned in the law. And that is what we are expecting, that it is now going to be a very good framework that is going to help the host community. 3% has already been allocated, by the law, and that's 3%, of the revenue out there, for managing, that process. So I think this structure, the governance structure, is supposed to support that, to see that those objectives were actually met.
Yeah. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. The objective is very fundamental, because if I look back at the period while some of us are growing up, the way and manner that some of these assets have been attacked. But the objective of government is clear, bringing this into one of the 4-5 cardinal of the PIA, at least for posterity's sake, direct social engagement and peace and harmony, which is very fundamental. As we progress, let me state to our listeners and our viewers that this is an interactive session. Our guest for today, Alhaji Alatoye, is fully prepared. So you can bring in your question, throw them in, so that we can intermittently change it with some of the things that will be perusing with our guest for today. Alhaji, the PIA addressed the new rule for NNPC. And just last week, the new vehicle for the country petroleum company, NNPC Limited, was unveiled. What is the significance of this transformation with reference to its operation, funding, and in particular, transparency for the Nigerian public, whose interests are being held in trust by the Ministry of Finance?
Okay, that's a very key part of the Petroleum, Industry Act, that we have. The first thing that we will be looking at by NNPC, Limited, as against a corporation, is that there is supposed to be best corporate practices now, in which the government interference is supposed to be removed, because we are supposed to have board of directors that are going to be, looking into the affairs of the company. We're going to having the CEO or the managing director of the company together with the team that is supposed to be a performing team, and is supposed to be commercially driven now, as against, pay it into one federation accounts or no. So it's a standalone company. And so we will be expecting performance-driven, lifestyle, as against, government-driven approach. And there should be high tax and regulatory compliance. They must be filing their tax returns very promptly, and then also complying with the law. There must be more accountability, more transparency, and more credibility if this is done, and this is going to engender good, access to funding, just as we have the Nigerian NLNG, for example. Nigeria NLNG government has a very good stake in that limited liability company, and now as an independent company, it can raise funds to any extent, that it wants to, because it has already built credibility, over the time. And this is what we are looking forward to with the NNPC, Limited, in the short run and in the long run.
Beautiful, beautiful. At least the key thing that there is minimal or removal of even government interference, and making them a stand alone. Not just that alone, a commercial viable organization that is expected to raise funds with the resources. Ifeanyi is bringing up a question. He said the PIA is a wonderful legislation, but the issue of ministerial discretion and approval is a big challenge that creates some level of uncertainty, citing the case of Oando and ConocoPhillips deal. How do you ensure the legislation protects investor in this regard?
Okay, the control that is in the new act is about the new regulatory bodies that have to work on allocation of oil blocks, and then the license management, and we have the upstream petroleum regulatory commission that is looking into that, as well as the midstream and then the downstream petroleum regulatory authority. So these authorities, just as we talk about limited liability company, is given more independence in line with the law. So if that independence is given, it is expected that they as Nigerians has to be loyal to the country and look at things from performance perspective. So, and then be able to make appropriate recommendation for the award, for drop and drill. If you are not able to drill, you drop, all those things. They are supposed to be able to look at it more passionately, unlike before, where everybody would be going to only one person and say, okay, it's awarded to you, it's not awarded to you. Now we have these authorities that is supposed to be more empowered. However, again, I have said it is very nice on the PIA. The workability of it is another thing entirely in Nigeria, because we have a back-to-back end issues that you may not know why things are not moving or why things are not working. But then in terms of looking at the structure of the law, ordinarily there is a significant departure from what it used to be, in line with the law.
Brilliant, brilliant. Significant departure. And just to land it, and I believe that if I have picked it from there. Fagbola, I will come back to your question because I know that question is germane. But let me quickly engage our guest with this particular one so that I can sync it and we can have a flow by our audience. The Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum recently stated that the new NNPC will not require their approval, and that you alluded to by saying they are now a standalone organization. And he also stated that they do not require the BPE for the approval of contract, but yet government instituted 24-man board on its own on our behalf. Given to this, how much of a benefit in terms of comfort or reassurance will it bring to the Nigerian public, a common man like me, with respect to the existence of the practice of corporate governance? Please throw more light on this for us.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I think this has to do with more of careful, management of the NNPC Limited by, those who are in charge. Now, we are talking about a government-owned entity 100% as it stands today. Now, it is easier really to say that, yes, the managing director and then the board, they have the powers to do and undo within, the company or what the company does. But I think they need to be very careful because this is Nigeria. And that's why I said, it will be good on the paper, but we must know that things, happen at a back-to-back end, so I don't really see how the MD on its own would take certain decisions with the board and they will go ahead without consulting, with the minister. So it's easier said than done. So in the law, that's the way it is structured. Now, the other one is the BPP that we talk about, that they don't need to, consult with the BPP. But I would suggest that the board and the MD, specifically the CEO, need to be very much aware of the other laws in Nigeria that governs government entities with respect to the procedures, for procurement, and then whatever profit you have in your account as at the end of the year, in terms of remittance of those things. So, as I said, it's difficult for a 100% owned government, not to have some level of interference that a private sector entity that is a diluted one will have. And the best example I want to give is that of the Nigerian NLNG, of which it is the percentage is not fully owned by the government. The government is having only 49, percent, and every other person is having, 51% at different rates. So with that, there is some level of independence of that company. Yes, the government might have its own view, but it's not 100%, position of the government. As against this situation now, where we have that whatever they decide will still be subjected to the government, back-to-back end, approval. Of course, that's not going to be in the law, but I don't. In practice, we may really explore a little bit more and then ask how things work. So again, also, as you have rightly said, we have 24-man board, which were appointed by the government. Even if the lead don't want to go back to the government and say, no, this is what is happening, of course, some people will go. So therefore, the person at least must be very careful. And this is why I say this about management and diplomacy. You must definitely have recourse to those who are as against an independent company that doesn't require, such back reporting before the formal reporting to the shareholders.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
The head, who is the managing director, needs to be very, 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 very careful. And let me pick on this. The wider economic impact of PIA is to open the oil and gas industry for investment, which is a positive one. How will you translate? How will this translate to the required growth of the Nigerian economy, and particularly the common man like you and I?
Okay, you see, the trust of PIA was actually to increase investment in that sector. And if there is increase, in that sector, let me start from when even the PIA started and there was dialogue. As at that time, Nigeria was producing about 2.3 million barrels as against 2.5 million barrels OPEC quota. So we are short, by about 200 barrels as at then. Now, what the government was looking at is from that 2.5 million barrels to 4 million barrels per day. That was the plan then, before even this PIA started. So the idea was to take it from 2.5 to 4 million barrels. If we do that, there is going to be more revenue to us. There is going to be more foreign, earnings, foreign currency earnings to the government. And that is going to help our infrastructure, like road, like power, like health. And this is where it will have benefited each and every one of us. Now, producing 2.5 million barrels and then now moving it to 4.5 million barrels is going to improve the production of Nigeria. It's going to increase, our revenue, and then there is going to be more employment. And as we know, there is going to be better, percentage to the host community. And again, we are supposed to look at how our refinery will be working and then get a lot of people also employed in that sector by getting the refinery working. So if the refinery is working, it's going to reduce the unemployment rate that we have in Nigeria. So there is a whole lot of catalytic positive effects if the PIA actually work as planned. And this is the benefit that we are looking forward to, with the advent of a PIA. If we pick each of all these things and we look at the statistics, it is supposed to be very helpful. As I said, we are supposed to move from 2.5 million to 4 million barrels. But unfortunately, the reality is another thing. I'm talking about the plan now and the plan benefit. But if we have that 2.5 million barrels, as at the time the PIA was passed, we are already down onto about 1.6 million barrels from the 2.5 million barrels. And OPEC has already, put us on 1.6. But today our production is just even on 1.2 million
1.2, 1.3
barrels. Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
that's a wonderful submission. Ademola is asking you this question. Do you think that PIA is attractive to foreign investor? Because I can see the balance between you talking about reality and what we have on paper. Do you think it's attractive for foreign investors?
Yes, ordinarily it will have been attractive, but our environment is really not making the PIA attractive as of today. And not being attractive is actually beyond the PIA. The security environment is actually quite challenging before we even get to PIA, because the cost of doing business has significantly multiplied. And unfortunately, the PIA introduced a concept of cost price ratio.
There seems to be a little flaky from your side.
Okay. Are you hearing me now?
Okay, yeah, you can go ahead. Sorry, there was a little glitch.
Okay, but are you hearing me now?
Yeah, very well. You can go ahead, sir.
Okay, all right. So as I was saying, the PIA is designed to actually bring in the investors, the foreign investors. But because of the security challenges in the Niger Delta area and all over the country generally, so this is the first challenges that the foreign investors are having. Now the next one is the crude oil theft, which is affecting the production. I mean the volume that they will be able to sell, and that is why even if you say 1.3 million barrels is produced per day, if you go and look at really what comes into the government, hardly will you have it to be up to 300,000 barrels out of the 1.1 million barrels. So, and it's the same thing that is affecting the investors. And if you look at the IOCs, they are still divesting despite the PIA. How and why? So the PIA alone will not do the magic, even though the PIA in some area has posted some challenges, whereas it has reduced the rates, 30%, 30%, the company's income tax as well as the hydrocarbon tax, 60% is fine as against 85%. But then the cost is now capped at 65% of the total cost. So you are going to, the government will disallow 35% and then apply 60% to that. So ordinarily it's supposed to be an attractive, performance, but because of the security costs that has put all other costs up, at the end of the day, it may not be that quite attractive. And that's why you find out that most of the IOCs, they are on their way, out. And so I think the government need to look into it on how to make it more competitive and more attractive to foreign investors.
You just said it all. PIA will not do it alone, but the security needs to be put in place so that people can have the confidence. And like you said, if you compare what we have to the old days where we have insecurity, where people have to attack the pipeline, with the introduction of the host community, it has played down. But the other security that is ravaging us, I'm sure the government will look at it. Let me go on to answer this question. As against the old upstream and downstream sector, we now have the midstream sector. Do you think this will boost the performance of the industry?
Yeah, very well. I think the idea of separating the midstream is a very brilliant idea,
Hmm.
because the investors are going to be more focused on the midstream now, and there is going to be more investment in that sector rather than treating it as an appendage of the upstream sector. For instance, if you pick the pipeline, sector before, and you are treating it as a part of the upstream, where an upstream company is also, trying to put up a pipeline, so how do you tax them? So there may be some controversy as to whether this is other income or no other income of an upstream income. But now that it is isolated, so you need to have a separate entity for that, a midstream, and focus on gas. And definitely you are going to be under a midstream sector as against also the downstream. So the investment in that sector is expected to increase, over the time. And then you have people who are going to be more focused and more competitive in that industry. And we are expecting, more FDI, through that amendment in the law that put, midstream to be part of the downstream before. So, but as it stands now, I think it's a very good idea that the midstream sector, is separated from both the upstream and then also the downstream sector.
Very brilliant, very brilliant. I'll take you on this issue because taxation seems to be fizzling into this PI of a thing. The hydrocarbon tax seems to be a very novel idea. Let me ask, will this increase the government take?
Let me say that this needs a bit of explanation, because it is not necessarily. It will increase government take only if there could be more investors as a result of the reduced rates. Because we were having 85% before for the joint venture, and then sold risk. We're having 85%, and now it's technically reduced to 60%. So ordinarily there is supposed to be more investment. Now, so if we have more investment, we have more volume, and that more volume is going to create more revenue to the government. However, if we drop the rate and then there is no increased investment, if we remove the price of such and we look at the price as at the time the law is being drafted, what it means is that the government revenue is going to reduce. Now, the idea is to increase, investment in that sector because of the lower rates. That is why I said not necessarily. Ideally, the answer should be yes. With the reduction in the rates, of the PI by introducing hydrocarbon tax, which is 30%, and then also the CIT, which is 30%, adding the two together now to give you 60% will ordinarily be better than the 85%. And you also have where it is PPL, where it is 15%, for hydrocarbon tax. You add it to CIT of 30%, gives you 45%. So that is supposed to be an excellent thing to, encourage people to come and invest. But the question is, why are we not having them? And that's why I said we have some other factors that we need to pay attention to significantly if we want the PIA to really work. So the hydrocarbon tax is a good, idea, in the sense that, yes, it's a resource tax, and then everybody is put on the platform of CIT altogether, even though for me, ordinarily, I would look at it that it doesn't necessarily have to increase, government take. With the PPT we have before, or with only one tax regime, we will still take what government take will be. If you add hydrocarbon tax to CIT, making 60%, or you reduce the PPT from 85 to 60%, you have only one tax, 60%, two taxes, 60%, is still government take 60%. So whatever mechanism you want to put, you can put it under one tax system, which was which is what we have in the 2018, petroleum industry bill, bill then. So
Brilliant.
there are divergent views as to whether we have double, taxes or whether we should have a single tax, But for me, it's more about tax neutrality that the hydrocarbon tax will work more on.
Oh, based on tax neutrality. And you just given that explanation. If it is reduced, it's supposed to attract. But because of other factor, we seems not to be enjoying our government having that increase in the state. Dr. Asay is asking this question, and is put to us that given that the NNPC Limited we operate under KAMA 2020 as a private sector entity, should it still be complying with the public sector regulation? Will it still be playing any role in the OML bidding processes? Your take on this.
Okay, let me say that the answer is yes, but let me mention that we don't have OML now. What we have now is the petroleum mining leases instead of the OML that we have before, that which is oil mining lease. We know that has to change because it's not only about oil. What about gas? So when you say petroleum, of course, if you have that license, so you're having both oil and gas there. So you have the petroleum, exploration license, petroleum prospecting license, and then when you then find oil, then you have now the petroleum mining lease. So NNPC Limited now has to comply with all the regulatory processes and procedures. So it's not a question of the government just throwing that license or leases to NNPC Limited. It has to comply with all the rules that all other companies apply with. But on a lighter mood, I don't think other companies will be jumping up and rejoicing that, oh yes, now we are in the same category with NNPC Limited. They said all animals, John Owell, all animals are equal, but some are more equal.
More equal than the other.
That's it. So don't compare yourself with them. You need to be very careful. If they are not filing returns, they are not paying taxes. Yes, FIRS may harass them a little bit, but I'm telling you, they will not close them for more than a day. But if you don't file returns, you must know that, I'm sorry, you are on your own, because nobody is to pick phone and help you out. So you just have to be more compliant, than NNPC Limited. But I also see them being very compliant now. I have to be very compliant, in line with the plans.
That's a very brilliant one and a very subtle submission that don't compare yourself with the big boys wherever they are raging. Let me say that one of the benefits of PIA is to introduce new tax regime, which you have explained. That is replacing the PPT with ACT, that's the hydrocarbon tax. I just want to ask, what is the impact? What impact does this have on the oil and gas industry? You said it that it's positive, but can you throw more light on this, please?
Okay, one of the key things, the impact that it will have in oil and gas is about the tax neutrality,
Okay.
And then elimination of cross subsidization. These are two very important things because it causes a lot of distortion, based on what the economists you will say, is a distortion. You are taking two companies before. One is paying companies income tax. The other one is paying petroleum profit tax at 85%. The other one is 30%. So what's the basis of comparing them? So the idea is, okay, let's cut off the upstream, which seems to be a high-end resource tax, and then collect that one separately. So whatever profit you made, now you are reduced to the same level with all other companies. And all of you are supposed to file tax under Section 55 of the Companies Income Tax Act. So, which means now there is a level playing ground for everyone to file CIT returns, which is the Companies Income Tax returns. So, to this end, the academicians, the economists, and everybody will be able to, carry on their statistics and say, oh, okay, all companies are being leveled. So that's about tax neutrality. You can see the 30% of CIT in Nigeria all across. This is so much it is. Now, the hydrocarbon tax is only for that sector. So you can see the incremental revenue coming from the resource tax. And that's it. If we look at it, practically that no, if you put the income tax from the CIT part and then you add it to the hydrocarbon tax, is still going to arrive at the same PPT, probably a reduced rate. The answer is yes. Now the question is, so why are you splitting it into two? For ease of statistics, to know that, look, all CIT in Nigeria by all companies in Nigeria is X amount. The hydrocarbon tax in Nigeria is X amount. So we understand what these things is. Even though some of us who are advocating only one tax system is because we have so many taxes in Nigeria before. And so splitting PPT into hydrocarbon tax and CIT, was resisted. But now the government has taken the decision. We all have to support, and then we have to move on, and then look at the merit that was being canvassed for it. Not that we close our eyes to it, it's just because we are looking at a long list of taxes for, companies to file. That's the reason why some of us were objecting to hydrocarbon tax and CIT by the same company. Why don't we just reduce it? We do understand the merit very well, in terms of national revenue accounting. So you can account for revenue of all the companies in Nigeria under CIT, as well as, under the resource tax. And you can compare that globally, that this is what we have under CIT in Nigeria. This is what we have under the hydrocarbon tax in Nigeria. So it has its own merit, but again, for that merit to come out, we need to look at the long list of taxes we have in Nigeria to avoid, overfiling of revenue, returns, and then, end up wasting a lot of time in terms of that. So that's one of the major merits that we have. Again, the CIT will remain very constant under the tax neutrality concept. Yeah. So everybody is filing CIT, even if you don't have a hydrocarbon tax, you still have to pay CIT. You have to comply with the rules, various rules in CIT, to make sure that there is a certain level of revenue to the government. Yes, even though some of us might be challenging the minimum tax, being capital tax or something like that. Ordinarily, maybe you won't pay if it's only under, PPT, you don't have any revenue, you don't have any tax and all those kind of things. But under CIT, you also contribute to the economy. So that is the benefit of the PIA. But again, it's we need to find a balance where the investors will not say, oh, before under the PPT, we are better off because we are not paying minimum tax. Now you push us under CIT, we are paying. But if the environment is friendly to them, I don't think they will mind, some smaller amount contribution into the running of government. So it's more of the environment than, splitting and then complying with these various taxes.
Very wonderful submission on that particular one, at least for statistic purpose. Then we can then look at our CIT, compare it with other clients, with other nations, and know whether we're doing well or not, at least separated it for every company that is incorporated. While we started, we spoke about the host community, and you alluded that 3% of the net profit is now being set aside for the host community to support their operation. I just want to find out, how effective is this?
Okay, let me say, to a relative extent, the host community had realized that, okay, now for the first time, the government is listening to them. So that is the first benefit of the host community coming into law. The government had actually tried some things in the past, and unfortunately cannot be reversed. We have the 13% derivation, which goes to the state. and may not even reach the host community at all. We have the NDDC, that may not also, reach the host community at all. And so this is why the agitation is there. To be very honest, I used to go to some of those host communities, and I feel very bad, as a Nigerian, to be honest, because you see the resources is coming from this location, and you find people not being able to work because these are an area that somebody is having the license, and again, everybody is just roaming right there, and then you are not improving the facility, you are not providing scholarship or things for that. So now, and that's why they are asking for 10% of the even revenue now, as against the net profit or whatever. So or the cost. So now that the government has brought it into law to make sure that something is provided, that is the starting point. And that is the benefit that we can see that, okay, now the host community have started, relaxing in terms of the challenge. But it is now difficult to measure the extent to which this cooperation, which is starting, is going because of the oil theft by other people. Otherwise, we're not supposed to have any issue, in the Niger Delta area now. What we should be looking at is that, okay, to what extent is this 3%, able to go? If it's not able to go so far, then can the government look at moving it to 5%, for the host community, irrespective of whether we have, the derivation or whether we have the NDDC, so that the host community can be properly taken care of. So it's good for us to measure the performance of these 3% and then be able to see, whether government could do better. But as I said, from my own reading and from industry people, some spoken to, there is relative, calm, especially working with the board of trustees and, every other person so that peace returns. Yeah.
Very, 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 very brilliant. And we can all feel it that there seems to be relatively peace. Time will not be our friend. I just quickly want to give you this question just in a minute by telling you that now that we have NNPC that is fully operational, what will you expect in short term, medium term, and long term of the company? In a minute, sir.
All right, thanks very much. You see, in the medium, in the short term, I would want them to increase, in best practices to operate as a limited liability company like any other company and remove the cap of we are government entities. If they do that, they should also emulate the Nigerian NLNG that remits dividends to government on a quarterly basis and provide revenue to the government. So I am looking at this on the short term, the medium term, and on the long term. In fact, on the long term, I want them to stabilize the oil industry like we have Saudi Aramco, like we have so many oil companies of other countries that are helping those companies, those countries. This is exactly what I am looking for towards the NNPC Limited.
Great one. Let them entrench themselves in best practices and emulate LNG and also try to stabilize the oil sector. Time is not always our friend, but I'll give you 30 seconds to give your parting shot to us, Al-Aji Aziz Alatoy.
Okay, thanks very much. The expectation of the PIA has been very high. When the PIA was passed, all of us, believe that there is now certainty. We are looking forward to a greater, investment in the industry, a greater employment in the industry, more revenue to the government as a result of volume, and all those things. But as it stands today, that our planned revenue was 1.8 million, barrel, 1.88 million barrels per day, and we are still on 1.2, 1.3 as of today reported, as against even actual that is probably lower than that. We need to do more to make sure that the effect of PIA is felt by all of us as Nigerians.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I have been guesting Al-Aji Aziz Alatoye, FCA, on today's episode of ICAN on Air. And he has done justice to some of the benefits that we have in PIA. And I want to believe that our listeners, our viewers, has actually gained a lot, a lot. I sincerely want to appreciate your time, Alhaji Aziz Alatoye, for coming to educate our members on this particular topic. I want to believe that when next we call on you, you will definitely make our time to be with us. On this note, I will be given a very brief announcement, and that is to tell our viewers that the 52nd Annual Accountant Conference is coming up October 10 to 14 at the International Conference Center, Abuja. And we expect every one of us to be part of the show. The fee is out and registration has started. We've started circulating the flyer for the physical participant. Non-male inclusive is 130. For those that will join virtually, 75,000. And those young accountants, the institute is taking cognizance of them, and that will be at 60,000. There's condition attached to that of the young accountant. And on this note, I will be winding up our program for today. But let me leave you that try as much as possible to connect on Thursday, because we have a very special package for you, most especially those of us that are in practice, those that are intending to go into practice, and those that are not even having it now. Try to connect, because there's a lot of things to tap, not only about that, even about our profession. I have an erudite person that I will be hosting on Thursday. On this note, I remain your host, Olusegun Okunade, FCA. See you on Thursday by God's grace. Have it and goodbye.